Welcome back to the programme. Now, is there or isn't there going to be a strike at Ryanair on Thursday? And if there is, if you've booked, I know you're in a state of dread, particularly if it's a family thing. Eoghan Corry, editor of Travel Extra, is going
Afternoon.
You're very welcome to the programme. What's going on at Ryanair? Is this an event in Ryanair? I mean, it's an event for all the people who are trying to travel, but is this a kind of a crunch issue?
No, it's going to be the first of several crunch issues.
Okay.
We've got over 100 trade unions out there across Europe, each of them entering the fray. This is the first time we're not even in the fray. We're just at the weigh-in, eyeballing each other. That's what's been going on over the last week. And get used to it. The strike threat is and the creation of uncertainty, and the putting of fear into people that their holiday will be ruined, is a weapon in modern aviation, in trade union negotiations. It's nothing to do with IALPA. It's right across the industry. Airlines for about 2 decades have been depending on forward bookings direct to the customer, and the creation of uncertainty affects the forward bookings. It gets people thinking about going to other airlines. It's a weapon that all the trade unions use, and it's something the airlines haven't got a response to yet. Ryanair, particularly with their business model, are vulnerable to it, expected to be played again and again and again against Ryanair across all the major markets they use.
Right. In some ways, you would think it's a weapon used against yourself, but people will get very cross with Ryanair and they'll give out about Michael O'Leary because that's standard. But I mean, the French traffic controllers do this kind of on a weekly, monthly basis.
If it's the weekend, it must be. They actually did every weekend in June. They cancelled 1,100 Ryanair flights. So even if IALPA, the question as we run into Thursday, and to answer your question, is I'm not exactly sure IALPA have the numbers to cause serious disruption on Thursday.
Yeah, explain that, because
it's about 1/3 of the pilots. But
are IALPA and the others are?
They're watching on the fence.
Right.
Saying, it's important for, the trade unions, and let's not limit this to IALPA because you could get caught in that, but across Europe, they're very powerful. They they've got a lot of procedural stuff. It tends not to be wages. They're well paid. It tends not to be wages.
Are they now? Because we were trying to go through the detail this morning. Are they better paid, say, than an Aer Lingus pilot?
By about 20,000 a year. And the roster is really important, the 5-4 roster that Aer Lingus conceded because it was a series of strike threats in Aer Lingus. That's still there in Ryanair. Now, it gets complicated by the fact that we're comparing narrow body with narrow body, and wide body generally are a different status. You also have...
When you talk about bodies, you're not talking about the pilots, you're talking about the planes.
Sometimes the pilots as well, but it's talking about the transatlantic aircraft versus the short hauler. All Ryanair are short haul. You also have IALPA, even though they've 1/3 of the pilots, they would claim that they have a higher proportion of the captain. So the aircraft goes nowhere without the captain. So it's all, there's a lot of working out in advance, and people will be familiar with this from sports. In advance, you're working out what your strengths, your weaknesses, who you're going to put on the fast corner forward. That's what's going to happen between now and Wednesday. And on Wednesday, when they eventually get to talk, they will both know their strengths and their weaknesses, and the deal will be done like a team of lawyers outside the Supreme Court. Same thing happens. The difference is that loads of people are really, really, really stressed to the gills because of something that is a procedural issue. It's something to do with holidays and,
what are they looking for? Because clearly the pay isn't the issue.
It's a question of control, really. Who decides, what the seniority scale is? Who decides?
What do you mean by seniority scale?
It's very hierarchical. To give an example, to move it out of IALPA as well, so to keep the heat out of it, Lufthansa the Lufthansa pilots brought the entire airline to a halt because the junior pilots were getting better terms than the senior pilots thought they were entitled to. That's the level of what goes on. They're very powerful. And at train union, it's one of the last heavily unionised sectors, industries.
Yeah.
And aviation is full of procedural stuff which makes no sense to anyone outside the negotiating room, and they're the ones who suffer. Now, what's being trashed out here is all procedural. It's all about the seniority, promotions, holiday entitlements, who gets the first take on holidays. It makes
So this is not about you're entitled to 6 weeks holidays. This is about who gets to claim first, I want to go in June.
This is not what brought Jim Larkin to the barricades. This is something so convoluted that anybody outside aviation wouldn't really understand it. People within aviation do. Like, for instance, Alan Joyce from Tala deals with 17 trade unions in Qantas. Willie Walsh has so many trade unions, he's probably lost count. The difference is Michael O'Leary has never broached a trade union, and now from 0 trade unions, he's got trade unions in 20 different markets and across all the different sectors, competing trade unions as
he's
well.
got people on a learning curve.
Well, they're pretty good at it. I mean, they're good. They're tough negotiators in every sense. What's really interesting is we are now in that. The Irish IALPA and will have been the ones that have been having that competition, that contest with Ryanair for the longest time. We've had libel actions between IALPA officials and Ryanair in both directions as recently as last December, and they will have all that bad blood. So there's an element that London signed up in December, Italy signed up fairly quickly, and they Irish are more reluctant, slower to sign up, and we have this crazy scenario where they can't even agree where they're going to meet. And I'm from Kildare, Marian, so it's Newbridge or nowhere as far as I'm concerned. But they won't even. It's like
you
the
Vietnam.
Vietnam.
Right, Newbridge,
it's like the Vietnam War. The size, the shape of the table became the big issue before the talks began. What will happen? What happens with IALPA, and IALPA has only really one speed on this, one gear on this. They're used to dealing with Aer Lingus. They're used to dealing with them better than CityJet, all the other Irish airlines. And they're moving into this almost with the Aer
Lingus model.
The Aer Lingus model, which is completely different from Ryanair's. It's a bigger airline. It can respond by moving pilots in. It can try and ride out the strike. It did so in February when some of the Italian pilots went on strike. It did so in April when some of the Portuguese cabin crew went on strike. So what will happen between now and Wednesday, when they will get talking, I'm sure they'll agree on a venue. IALPA will know where they stand in numbers and where they're vulnerable to, and Ryanair will know whether they can fly through the strike or not. And this is important from a consumer point of view. You're going to hear on Tuesday afternoon whether your flight has been cancelled. The way this works, Ryanair have got good at cancellations in September because they had to. They're like in retreat mode. They've all that organised retreat doing. They will pick the trunk routes with lots of flights a day, like London, and they'll try and protect the Malagas, the holiday routes. And on Tuesday afternoon, they will decide what's been cancelled and what's being rescheduled, and you'll start hearing by email then. And then the dance that starts on Wednesday. The way the dance works, from watching it with the IALPA and Aer Lingus, is they all sit in a room. Nobody says anything for about 12 hours. Then at 4 o'clock in the morning, they do in 15 minutes what they could have done in the first 15 minutes.
It's just like Europe.
It's just like Europe.
Yeah.
It's sort of Buin Air or Unsi na Hinsha, except there aren't any Aindo trees till 3 o'clock in the morning. And then everything happens and they arrive bleary-eyed and there's a deal signed and everybody's honour is saved. But the damage has been done to the forward bookings, and everybody's nerves are shredded, and that's where the strength. This is what I said: uncertainty is a weapon.
But
and what we've seen in the last week is uncertainty.
If you take, you could say bad weather could delay you, or ash from wherever could delay you.
Fiala Yokul. We all remember it so well.
Say it again.
Fiala Yokul.
Very impressed with that. If you take somebody that's booked a package holiday and they've got 2 weeks in the place with the kids, every day matters. It's tough. You can't be just saying, I get over it and, you'll be delayed, but you'll get there. Like, it's their annual summer holidays.
That's aviation. It happens all the time. Ice storms in winter, air traffic control strikes, 1100.
Pardon?
Ferries.
Ferries
Yes,
getting delayed.
yeah.
That is pushed.
Although the ferry that wasn't ready.
Well, they actually got everyone, onto alternative ferries, but what that did was push the price up for everybody because the capacity was reduced.
Oh, right.
It was a deal, but. It happens in aviation, and what you tend to forget is airlines are really good at getting lots of people home out of a crisis, out of the ash cloud, Lisa had a odyssey to get back during the ash cloud crisis.
I was actually on Tenerife when the volcano went up.
Yeah.
And actually, I can't believe Owen remembers. Yeah, I went on this absolutely mad odyssey.
I managed to get a panic-stricken phone call to me at some stage.
Yeah, I managed to get like a last minute, like the last flight off the island and into, I think it was Lisbon, and then a gang of us got together in the bus station, and strangers, 18 of us, and we hired a minibus and we drove to Paris. And then one of the guys knew a back entrance into the Gare du Nord, wherever it is the Eurostar goes from, and we kind of smuggled us in. So we came out at the cash desk and we just threw loads of money at them. Got on a train, got to London, hopped on a thing up to Holyhead, and then I think I was sitting on the Holyhead ferry, and I think I got a call actually from this station going, we heard your Odyssey, come in. And I came in, and they were most disappointed that I wasn't sort of, dust streets, covered in dust and dirt. And
you looked like your passport picture, did you?
I look more or less, which is really bad.
But rest assured, Ryanair will get you to the airport that you're supposed to get to, not to one beside it. And you may be a day late, but it happens all the time in aviation. Planes go tech, there are thunderstorms, there are all those weather things.
Yeah.
And they're very good at recovering from it. As I say, what IALPA are threatening, which would be a very, let's say they stop all of the flights, that's about 120 in each direction on Thursday. It's minuscule compared to what has been done to Ryanair alone by the French air traffic control.
Right.
And then so what... it will recover. You will get to where you are. And what we've seen over the last week has been the trade union movement playing this uncertainty, creating all sorts of excitement and fear, playing you would play the fiddle at the sessions in Miltown Malbay this week. They've been really managed to create this background of everything. The impact of this strike will be a total closure, and it's not certain at all. Right. And I do expect the deal to be done, by the way. When they look into each other, the whites of each other's eyes, I do expect, and it will probably be the early morning on the day of the strike.
But I know that to the rest of us, some of that all sounds a bit archaic or arcane, but there are things like where you're based, and if you want to be based in Ireland, and I gather that no matter how long you're with the company, if they don't want you to come home to Ireland, you stay in Madrid or you stay in wherever, and that there are those kind of rigidities that are described as flexibility, but not very flexible for the pilot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ryanair moves pilots, and there has been allegations that they've done so over the pilot's head and against their. But when you get the accumulation of complaints against Ryanair, it all comes back down to the fact that they're used to running it without being their business without being answerable to anyone. They control everything very tightly. They put sales targets in for cabin crew. That's the major issue with the cabin crew.
Well, I was reading some stories about cabin crew and what they're paid and how their pay is made up, and it's Dickensian.
And Marian, they're kind of match striking at the moment. They're getting ready to blow this up too. And that I listened to their representative on the radio the other day talking about, all of the terms and conditions that they need sorted. So you could just see this escalating. So I suppose there's one thing, if you want a holiday in Ireland next year, you better start booking it now, because prices will definitely be going up.
I'm just wondering if Theresa May would make checkers available for another effort to get it and take away their phones.
Good value, yeah.
But a question to Owen, if I may. I understood there was a problem about the legal system to apply to, let's say, people in Portugal or people in Spain, or is it the Irish legal system? Is that a serious
Ryanair is very tightly controlled. Everyone is under Irish labour law. They're headquartered here. They're all employed out of Ireland. That saves Ryanair the headache of 27 different regulatory regimes.
Is that all right in EU law? I wouldn't know about it, but I just wonder.
It has been tested in EU law, and Ryanair has managed to. But where it has come to bite them in the bum is that when it came to basing aircraft in some of the big markets they want to get into, they're chasing Germany at the moment. They've been shut out of France, and they're unable to base aircraft in France because of French labour law. So what part of the major reason for recognising the unions waited for 2 decades for them to get into this huge difficulty, self-inflicted difficulty, and they pushed it, they got the recognition. The major reason for doing it at the time was that when you have strike threats and you don't recognise unions, there's no way of resolving the strike threat. So now they have all of that dance, the HR dance that we've been talking about, they can resolve the issues. The second reason is that markets like Scandinavia and France, where if you don't recognise unions, you run into all sorts of regulatory problems, will be open to them. They need to expand. They've 270 aircraft on order from Boeing. They need to find new markets. It probably dawned on them that they've gone as far using the model that they have. Now they have to bite the bullet, recognise unions.
And get on with that. Your
point about the cabin crews coming together from 4 countries, this could be, this is a study in years to come, a seminal moment in trade union, the scattered trade union movement of Europe are facing for the first time a pan-European airline. And Ryanair is the first of these. EasyJet is largely English. All the others are sort of national carriers. Ryanair is across 17 markets. And we could have the coming together of a trade union movement to match that pan-European model. So it's unite arouse your workers from your slumbers. The Internationale finally coming about as a result of Michael O'Leary, which is a grim irony.
Listen, come back to what matters to somebody who's packing their buckets and spades at the moment.
Hold your nerve.
Hold your nerve. Don't cancel.
Don't cancel, no. You will be told on Tuesday if your flight has been consolidated. It's more likely if your flight will be consolidated if you're going to Stansted than you're going to Malaga. I would expect Ryanair, if there's no deal, I do first of all expect there to be a deal.
Yes.
If there's no deal, I expect Ryanair to fly through it, bringing pilots in from other bases. I'm not sure Ryanair are certain what the level of disruption they can cause, that IALPA can cause is as yet. But they're stressing the fact it's only 1/3 of the pilots.
Okay,
that
can
won't
I
go
just
away.
come back?
That will grow, by the way.
If your flight is cancelled, what are your rights?
Oh, this is a really interesting one. You're entitled to a refund and to be scheduled to fly on the next available flight. What we've seen is EU 2004-261, which is the regulation for compensation. That's being floated a lot, including by the Commission of Aviation Regulation here. That doesn't apply if there are exceptional circumstances. And until quite recently, exceptional circumstances outside the airline's control included strike action. The normal stuff is in there, like the airplane being technical or weather. The strike action is being eroded because we've had a couple of judgments, a very spectacular one with TUI Fly in April from the European Court of Justice, which seems to have pushed that back. So the position is that you're being told by a lot of media outlets and by the Commissioner herself that you're entitled to compensation. It's up to Ryanair to respond to that and contest that if they say these are circumstances outside our control. So be very wary about booking another flight and then waiting for Ryanair to pay for it. That's what happened with the pilot rostering problem. That was something within Ryanair's control. This is slightly different and it's a bit of a grey area. I'm not saying not do it, but your compensation entitlements are not as clear cut as it seems we're being led to believe, and just concentrate on the task in hand of getting you and your family to where you're supposed to go. As I say, you may be a day late. Whether you're entitled to compensation will come down the track as a result of that, but it'll be an argument by lawyers very far away from Malaga.
Okay, listen, we will leave that there for the moment.